So it seems like, I mean, from this group and other discussions when you talk with people in the community, it seems like the consensus is we certainly don't want to lose what we have, which is the great lifestyle, the natural resources, the things that brought people to the area, or the reasons why people who grew up here stayed in the area. But, you know, particularly among the business community, there's a desire to be more, to enrich our lives, to have more companies here doing interesting things. So I think all of you touched on a lot of these points, but let's dig into a few of the areas. And, you know, maybe if we start off, if we want to identify, you know, what is the one or two key things to get to this reality, I think where we would hope to be in 10 years, what are the biggest needs of the community? How, you know, because, you know, as I said before, you can't come up with a marketing slogan. I think Jeff came up with a couple good ones. But, you know, it's gotta stand for something. People, when they get here, they'll sense, they'll figure out whether that's real or not. So what, if you had to identify one thing, what needs to happen in this period, Tom?
You said two or three things.
Yeah, well, for you, I said one.
I think there are three things. I believe that we need to organize and make a large commitment in the community towards these three things. The first is K through 12 schools, improving, making the schools better, making the schools safer, making them more successful. Second one is what I would call beauty and cleanliness. Those of you who were moved by Mayor Riley from Charleston, as I was, knows exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about beauty. But it is such an essential part of this idea of quality of place that everybody, whether it's in your neighborhood or in your business or at an intersection, rather than throwing a cigarette out a window, which seems to be a national pastime unique to this area, particularly to this area, you know, we've got to get our act together, folks, in those two areas. And the final one is interesting, and it's arts, music, and culture. And instinctively, you might check that as an option or a nice to have, but I disagree. I think that for this community to thrive, we need to integrate what's actually a very positive, there's a lot of positive and disparate silos going on, but there's no plan, there's no strategy for it. And the arts, music, and culture community here needs a city arts commission. They need an organizing force. They need a vision. Our film festival is ranked in the world as one of the premier arts festivals, film festivals, yet we don't have the community deeply involved in it and integrated to it. It's probably more integrated to Riverfest than it is to the film festival, which is a much larger potential economic driver to the community for our service and tourism business.
I agree with Tom 100% on the design aesthetics of our community. I think that that's a big key to fulfilling one of our brand promises. And I think, you know, when we talk about branding, I mean, that's when you brand something, you're basically guaranteeing something. You're promising a certain attribute of that company or service or talent in this case. And I think without looking the part, as even though that seems face value, I think that's very key to not only the folks that live here, because I think when we're in an environment that looks good and it's designed well and it's planned well, that affects all of us and it affects us in a positive way. And of course, businesses that are looking to relocate here, you know, that's going to be a key to them too, is our environment.
The key I'll break down from a strategic standpoint, it's really the coordination of three specific things. The politics, the political machine of the region, the economic machine of the region, and the social. And I think it's not just coordinating those three activities or those three broad platforms, but it's coordinating all the public and private organizations that move in between all of those. You know, the social piece I'll throw out there is the arts, the music, the culture, the education. There are public and private organizations that work within that realm, and they need to be coordinated with the ones that are focused on the economic side of the equation, which might be the infrastructure and things that WID is doing. And they all need to be coordinated. In terms of economics, I think it's clear. We have to continue to either plan for and build out the infrastructure, pursuant to what I think that the city and the county have done a pretty good job with a long-range plan. It's there. The framework is there. Now we just need to tackle how we're going to prioritize and break it out. We've got to focus on how to continue to move towards a knowledge-based economy, but not lose the pure fact that we're going to have some industrial-based stuff here. And we probably, Woody can probably come up with the real data, but we really need to continue to do the best we can to provide employment opportunities in that $40,000 to $70,000 range. If we leave the guts of that base behind, we won't be able to get there. And from a political standpoint, we're going to have to leverage all the intellectual things and all the intellectual capital we have. We need to recognize we might be in the 21st century, in the sense from our political standpoint. I know Rob said don't look at a map. If you look at a map of our region and you look at a map of New Hanover, Pender, and Brunswick County, you can really start to prioritize each bucket. I'm a big proponent of Mayor Sappho, and he is from a different political party, and I support him holistically. When is this community going to have a paid mayor? We're fortunate that we have somebody like Billy that can afford to do what he's doing. Well, when Billy gets tired or has to go back because Doki's working every day to keep the machine going, when the argument historically has been we can't do a paid mayor because then people run for mayor to get a job and get a salary. I think we've grown out of that. So when is City Council going to step up and make a motion to have a paid position? And it's always hard because you've got the Democrats, Republicans, just go, that's the right thing. That's where we need to go. If we learned anything from the last Power Breakfast, that's what we need. We need that installed base leadership where you can get really good intellectual capital to assume those positions. I would also tell you the other taboo is we've got a city government and a county government. And within those governments you have overlapping agencies. Unless the message and the goals get driven down to that basic level, and those people are working with WID and all of the and Wilmington 2.0 and all the unless they all coordinate and get that together, we're gonna break down. So there needs to be a real coordinated activity. And some of the stuff, the choices we have to make, I think whether we go one way or the other, those are decisions that need to get made sooner rather than later.
I'd like to be the first to say something about Chad's comments. And Chad, it took me a while before I wanted to jump in on your comments, so that was pretty impressive.
Oh, thanks.
You did okay.
Remember, you need a ride home.
And I'm not going to disagree with anything Chad said, per se. I want to touch on one key point while it's in my feeble mind, and it's this. The notion that you can separate the so-called social requirements for a thriving arts and music and culture scene and really excellent K-12 schools as non-economic issues is a myth. And I don't think Chad meant to, but there's a tendency for all of us to make that mistake and not understand that those considerations, K-12 schools, the arts, and the clean and beauty issue, they are economic drivers as much as social drivers, and everyone needs to understand that the integration of that into the economic drivers is essential, and for all of us to think of them as essential parts of our success. And no one can tell that better than Scott Satterfield, who does such tireless work. When he, for example, brought Verizon here, the schools were a huge thing to overcome. And he said to me, it's one of the most important things he deals with every day as he's introducing Wilmington to businesses looking to relocate to the southeast coast. Let's just all remember that they're not separate issues.